Hey, how you doing? This is Peter here with the McKernan Group. So there's a lot of questions get thrown at me, and it's, hey, I just bought a house 6 months ago, a year ago, and should I refinance? Well, I talked on another video about how interest rates have gone down a little bit since they went up in February and March. So it would be a good time to at least have the conversation with your lender or the lender that you used, and if you weren't too happy with them, another lender. Get a couple of different, I always like getting a couple of different estimates from different lenders on what they're looking at, kind of what your financials are and what they would quote you for on the interest rate, and then also closing costs. So those are two big things you want to talk about with that lender. Closing costs, always obviously the least amount of closing costs when you're doing a refi, and then the lowest interest rate possible. Sometimes people will hide those fees, the lender fees, in the interest rate. So just be cognizant of that and ask those questions. Those are tough questions sometimes to have with, especially with a lender. Have those questions with them and say, hey, how much is it going to cost me to do this refinance and closing costs, and then how much is it going to cost for to get that good interest rate. Sometimes they'll say, hey, this interest rate right now is 3.5%. Your credit score is 700 or below. So those things are a factor too. There's a lot of things that go into making sure your debt to income ratio is another one. All those other things are a big factor. And then what are you guys doing? Are you guys doing a rate and term refinance, or are you doing a cash out refinance? Those are other things that affect the interest rate and also the closing costs too. So be cognizant of that. Make sure those questions are definitely answered prior to moving forward with that lender. Don't just go with one. Same thing as with agents and then anybody else. Make sure you're doing interviews with at least 3 or 4 people, having those conversations, knowing those answers before you say, okay, hey, Jake is a good person to go with, or Fred is a good person to go with, or Jan is a good person to go with. So those are those are going to set you above just saying, okay, I'll take the first person that I get, and they're going to give me, they're going to be honest. They're going to give me, most people are honest, but you want to make sure that those hard-hitting questions that a lot of people don't ask are asked prior to getting into escrow. So, or refinancing, pardon me, and going into escrow too. That's all, the same thing. You want to ask those questions going into escrow, but the refinance question always comes up, especially in those times that are, the interest rates are great. So yes, I would do that. There's a lot of people buying, going back to purchasing. There's a lot of people buying bigger commercial properties, and they're just killing it right now because the interest rates are so good on something that's $2 or $3 or $4 million. 2.5 to 3% or 3.5% is unheard of in the commercial space. So make sure that you are doing your homework as a homeowner going into that refinance before you feel like, okay, well, hey, I feel comfortable moving forward. So do that homework. You especially did it most likely for the career that you're in now. So just apply the same principles that you did throughout school, getting into your career, for the same thing, refinancing, because it's going to cost you a lot of money over the 30 or 15-year term that you own the property. It's definitely, it behooves you to make sure that those things are checked out prior to making that happen. So if you guys have any comments, questions, leave them below, and then also subscribe.